Hi everyone, welcome back to Invisible InCourage. Today I'm here with Lisa Sniderman, who is not only lives with an invisible disability, but she is also the host of the How to Thrive with Chronic Illness Summit, which is going on now. Hi Lisa, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little about yourself and your own personal battle with invisible disabilities.
Absolutely. So picture yourself. It's 6 weeks before you're getting married. It's you're about to promote your first full-length album and go on tour, and you're working full time. And you inexplicably get a really painful red rash on your nail beds and your hands and knuckles.
Yeah.
And you go to a dermatologist's office thinking that the doctor's going to prescribe some cortisone cream or something. And instead, he tells you that you have a kind of a unpronounceable disease, and he refers you to a rheumatologist.
Okay.
And you're about 35 years old. So that was me in 2008. And that's kind of the start of my journey, is, plunged me into this world that I soon became familiar with, which was I have and I've lived with and navigated, battled, and made peace with a rare chronic illness called dermatomyositis. And it's a progressive muscle weakness disease.
Okay.
And I've been battling it for more than 12 years, trying to find the right combination of treatments and drugs and immune suppressive drugs and infusions and therapies to allow me not only to survive, right, deal with all of the day-to-day challenges, but then to maintain my quality of life and thrive since 2008. And, part of my story that I've kind of just come to more recently is that my story is one of going from surviving to thriving. And that a lot of us, who live with illness, we get this diagnosis at kind of more acute stage where we have to deal with the mechanics of the illness and really trying to figure out the treatment before we can get to anything else.
Exactly.
So once I was kind of able to get through the, day-to-days, it's then that I actually ended up turning to creativity. And I'm a musician, I'm an artist, playwright, author, filmmaker. So
Wow.
for me, creativity is sort of my go-to. And it wasn't really that different, when I ended up getting dermatomyositis. So I plunged myself, and really, I always like to say that I am an artist, who has been battling DM for 12 years and obsessively creates to heal. And music and art are my lifelines. So that's something, for me that I've really turned to. Yeah.
So I've seen a few of your pictures through your website and everything, which we'll definitely link to in the comments after this. Tell us a little bit about these specific projects, and also how has it changed the direction of your creativity after your illness?
Really interesting. So the worst of it for me, I'll just share one more thing, was a flare in 2010 that rendered me in the hospital for about a month, unable to move any of my muscles. And so my journey was one also of recovery and having to relearn how to stand, sit, walk, and then eventually play and sing again. So the reason I'm sharing it is because it isn't just the physical part, it's also the mental. And I think, part of the reason that I plunged into creativity is because of that nurturing and, the ability to express and to share really does help, with your emotion and your spirit. And so that was really a big thing behind it. So initially I was really doing more music and also things like creating fantasy musicals for young adults, and then creating musical theater. And the reason for this trajectory, honestly, is because when I was at home, I was no longer able to tour. I was no longer able to do things like a singer-songwriter would when they would release an album. So I had to find new ways to keep my dreams alive. And that's important because so many of us go through illness, and we don't want our dreams to die. We need to think of what can I still do? So for me, I ended up recording at home. I ended up finding a new niche in this kind of children's theater world, that I knew nothing about, and just sort of plunged myself into, and found new ways to thrive. And so that trajectory has taken me through music. I then ended up writing a book. So what happened is in 2016, I had been living with DM and realized that I really never processed the darkness side, how it felt to lose my independence, how it felt to be in the hospital, all those things, right? I never really did process it. And so I ended up writing a book in order to share my story and inspire and encourage those who face similar challenges. So, people with invisible illnesses, people with chronic illness, people with disabilities, and also just who face very difficult life challenges. And that's called A Light in the Darkness, Transcending Chronic Illness Through the Power of Art and Attitude. So that was part of my journey was, okay, I've done music, I've done some films, I've done books. And, what's wild and what brings me to the summit, to be honest, is that even after 12 years of doing all of this creating and expressing, I still have challenges creating, connecting, and finding community while at home, mostly because I've been homebound and with limited energy. So at times, those of us living with illness may feel, what can we continue to contribute? Where, do we still have value? Do we still have worth? What is our identity if we, don't want to consider ourselves victims? And we are not our disease, we always say, right? We're not the sick person. So who are we apart from our disease? And my artist, at the core, I'm still an artist. So, that was really important to me to sort of understand that I can still do something, even from home, living with illness. And so about a year ago, I envisioned, and not a lot of people know this, but this is actually going to be a documentary. It was going to be, an actual documentary. But once I realized, again, being realistic with myself, I said, I don't have the bandwidth. It's not just a money issue. This is bandwidth to really get a documentary together. And how can I really feel like I can give and have the most impact? And that to me was, putting together a summit. And I wanted to make that online and accessible to everybody and free. That was really important to me because we, as people living with illness, already have to incur so many expenses from medical and all of this, that it's like I don't want to just add expenses, especially COVID time. So that was very important to me as well.
So tell us more about the summit. How did you decide who would be featured and what topics would they speak on?
Yeah, so if going back to my own niche, my niche is creativity. And initially, actually the year before, a couple of years, I interviewed about 45 different artists who create to heal and shared their stories through conversational videos. The reason I'm sharing it is because it was sort of a spark for me that I wanted to collaborate with other artists who also are dealing with illness. And I found so many inspirational people that was my first niche, was like, oh, I'm an artist. I'm reaching out to other artists who battle illness. But what I quickly realized was creativity was just sort of one of those spokes in the wheel, right? In the wellness wheel. And that really to understand how we can thrive, I needed to ask all these different experts, from medical practitioners, medical professionals, mental health professionals, alternative practitioners, creative therapists like art, music, and drama, online support networks, thought leaders, so this whole gamut, and also spiritual teachers and healers. So if you think about you've seen a wellness wheel, and how it sort of nurtures the emotional side and the spiritual side and your mental side and your physical, right? And so it's sort of thinking about, well, how can we be in balance? And to me, that's sort of what thriving looks like, is when these things are all nurtured. And that's how I decided kind of the experts. And so it ranges from topics like things that we dealing with illness have to face. So exercise, as an example. I'm tired, right? I deal with limited energy. I have been on one live talk today and I went right to this one. And normally I need to rest between, and I gave I napped right before this. And I'm sharing it because this is reality. I have a limited number of spoons that I live with. So for those familiar with the spoon theory. And so what that means is trying to think about how to really present this information, in a way that somebody who deals with limited energy and illness can understand. So things like exercise is one, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, nutrition and diet, right? So all of these areas are covered because they're areas that we all ask, there's no cookbook. And, one of the things I say about the summit is there are no instructions for chronic illness. It doesn't come with a set of instructions. And that's sort of my tagline, because that's the issue is even most of us, when we come out of the doctor's office, especially from Western medicine, they're treating our physical symptoms. They're giving us medicine to keep things, quiescent, like inflammation in my case, so I take drugs for lowering and minimizing inflammation, etc. But what about, the restoration of your spirit, and what about your mental health? And these things are so rarely talked about. So that was how I chose my experts.
Yeah, that's one of the things we like to talk about so much, is sometimes that the emotional burden of chronic illness and chronic pain can be even worse than the physical burden. And, you're very isolated. You don't have like many connections outside the world. Your life has so drastically changed, and it's just not being prioritized because you have these physical conditions that are in our society are always the first priority. And sometimes the emotional burden can just get lost completely, for sure.
Yeah, and it all depends on where you are in your journey. Like I say, when you're in the acute stage and you have to manage your symptoms, there isn't much wiggle room yet for, I want to explore all these other things, because you literally have all your energy goes to just dealing. Like if you're sick, and I mean sick on top of being chronically ill. So if you get a cold, or, you're dealing with COVID, for cases like now, anything that you're dealing with is that extra burden where I know personally I isolate and I shut myself off so I, won't go on social media and things like that, because I have to sort of be a recluse and get through that. Yeah. But then, when I start feeling better, that's when I'll, regain and go back to the world. So anyway, for the summit, I interviewed these experts, I recorded videos, and what the summit itself is, what makes it unique is that it's a combination of these recorded videos, but also live events. And so it was important to me to have connection and communication. So we have a Facebook group, for example, a community where people are sharing both live talks as well as responses or resources or thoughts about what they're experiencing during the summit. So it's been a really neat way, to continue to have people participate that doesn't feel so isolating. And then they can also get on, Zoom talks and be kind of in the distance watching or ask questions if they'd like to. And I also have 2 speaker panels that are coming up. So one on July 17th and one on July 23rd, where half of the speakers, basically one set from the first week and then one set from the second week, will be on the call, and including I understand from you guys, I understand that Jess will be there. So that is something that we're looking forward to. It's an opportunity to ask questions from the talks that everybody has watched, and I think there's about 15 to 20 speakers per week, so really special. Yeah.
That's so fun. So is it a Q&A portion? So if any of our viewers want to join in, they can ask questions to the experts. How does that work?
Exactly. It'll be moderated for the first half. I will ask the panelists one question that every panelist will get a chance to answer, and then the whole next half will be Q&A. Okay. And the only thing that I'll say is the only prerequisite is just registering. So it's a free summit, but you just need to go onto the summit website and register in order to get access to all of the live talks and the recorded talks.
Perfect. And we did put that link in the event bio today, but then we'll also want you to put it in the comments today in case anyone's looking for that.
Absolutely, yes.
That'd be great. How has it been going so far? Has it been fun?
So it's exceeded expectations. There's been a lot of things that, it's our first summit. So from that perspective, you don't know what to expect. But what I've loved about it so far is positive feedback, people saying that they've enjoyed the talks, they're getting some impact from them. And I really enjoy people that are connecting and communicating in the Facebook group, because that also helps kind of monitor, the pulse of what people are getting. And, I didn't know, it's sometimes the value, of something free. You never know how that's going to be perceived. And what it told me is that people kind of are craving this information. And what I'll share is that even if you weren't, living with illness, I've said that this summit is for people who live with chronic illness, loved ones, caretakers, but I kind of extended that because right now we're in a really unprecedented time. And what I feel like is a couple things. One, people like us actually can help other people. So many of us have been home isolating and sheltering way before COVID, and I'm one of those. I've actually been homebound for about 20 months. And so the sheltering part of it was not new to me, but some people, right? And so I feel like, hey, we can actually help our friends and family with some of the transition because, we know what this is like to feel that isolation and, feel kind of that disconnect. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is I feel like we have like a responsibility, I feel personally, to share this information to help people thrive because right now, with everybody who, with all the emotions happening around, strife and around illness and around fear and anxiety, there's all of this stuff that's happening. And so to be able to absorb, I don't know, talks and conversations from people who they can relate to and have found ways to successfully overcome and persevere through things, to me is really inspiring. And so whether or not you've had illness, I feel like sometimes this is like a summit on how to thrive, period. Like not just with chronic illness, because everybody that I know could benefit from, we need to think about how we look at exercise and maybe think about, our diet in a different way and think about our, movement and, mindfulness and meditation. Well, what's that? And how do they differ? So anybody, even beyond people living with illness, I feel like could benefit.
Absolutely. And chronic illness is just so broad. The symptoms, we all experience are so varied. So it really is just more of dealing with the emotional component for sure. So let's talk a little bit about yourself and your diagnosis. How you said it was a progressive illness. I personally don't have a progressive illness. So what is that additional emotional burden to be like, knowing that it can get worse every day? What is that like?
Well, the main thing is that when I say it's a progressive muscle weakness disease, it's without treatment, I could be faced with full debilitation, including being bedridden or worse. So the main thing for people who have myositis is that, and my form of myositis in particular does have treatment. So when I'm managing my myositis with treatment, I'm able to still have quality of life. And that doesn't always mean going out into the world. That for me, that's not really part. And it's funny because in some ways, okay, here's an example. I've been receiving IVIG, it's gamma globulin, and it is a treatment that allows me to flood myself with new antibodies in order to hopefully change and minimize the attack on my muscle cells. So with autoimmune disease, basically my body is attacking itself, and in my case, likely attacking the muscle cells. So IVIG gives me all these new antibodies, and I think of them as these great fighters and warriors that are there to replace all of those bad antibodies. And so I have been receiving treatments since August of 2019 each month, 5 days at the hospital each month. And that's intense. It is something that I chose and was, recommended to me to do because I had a flare of my dermatomyositis in 2018 after doing what I was saying about interviewing all these artists and launching a book and producing an event. And the reason I share it at all and talk about this journey is, one, living with illness is a roller coaster. There's times when we're on the up and there's times that we're on the down. And two, even your go-to place, like for me, my creativity and my nurturing, can also be a detriment if not balanced with self-care and those things that we need to do. And so that was really a big deal. When you ask about what it is to have a progressive muscle disease in this case. What it means is that I have to be super vigilant and remember that I live with illness, because when we're on those ups of the roller coaster, sometimes, I don't know about you, but people that I've talked to who have an ounce of energy will spend it all like right then, because we don't know when we're going to get it again. So it's like, today, somebody said, "Oh, you look great," which is super kind. And it comes from a warm, meaningful place. But it also is an understanding sometimes like, oh, well, in an hour from now, you don't understand that I'm going to have to go lie down and completely, rest for the rest of the day because I spent this energy.
It can feel very invalidating and dismissive of what you're doing and how much energy is required to, put on the smiley face and get out there and, just live, really.
Yeah, and I don't feel like it's, personally, I don't feel invalidated, but I do understand, more I'm saying, I know it's coming from a well-intentioned, meaningful place, but for myself, it would be nice also if people understood that just because I am putting on, a nice shirt and look okay on camera doesn't necessarily reflect what's happening on the inside. And that's a perfect, way to describe what IDA, right, invisible illness, is about, is that it's so hard to adequately convey what's going on right here when all you see is this, and you're like, oh, she looks like she's glowing, and look how much energy she has, right?
Absolutely.
Now on the other hand, I'm happy right now to be able to manage, and I actually made a hard choice in March of this year to stop receiving my IVIG treatment because of COVID. Now, there are people who will say this is controversial. One, it's a treatment that's keeping me, this quality of life. So why would I stop it? Number two, this treatment could help during COVID because it's actually giving me things that would help my body immunity, help increase the immune system, or whatever it is, help it fight. But on the other hand, for me, I had to make my personal choice of, I don't want to risk 5 days at the hospital with COVID out there every month. It's just like, it's not worth it to me, and to bring that home to my husband, who's also in a higher risk population for his age and his, what he deals with. And so I made that decision for myself and had to say, okay, what am I going to do in the interim? It's really behooves me now, because I'm not doing medical interventions. I really need to think about, what am I going to do to keep my own body healthy, or, healthy while living with illness, right? Wellness. And I actually ended up seeing a functional nutritionist, somebody I met through interviewing her during my summit, who I really connected with and resonated. And so I am now seeing her. And because of what she has given me in terms of, recommendations and a sugar reset diet and supplements, that is part of my, regimen, along with my prednisone and et cetera, while I'm not doing these IVIG treatments. So, and on top of it, because I'm doing a summit and I'm also doing a recording project right now that I'm trying really hard not to focus on while I'm doing the summit, because it's, you want to give your focus to one thing. But because of all of that, I have to take my naps, no matter what. That's my number one. I have to take my naps.
So many of us, either by incredibly difficult choices or just it was completely out of our control, we had to give up so much access to our regular medical procedures during COVID. And it has been so hard for, just so many of us. It's so difficult. Yeah. Okay, so we always ask one question, and it has to do with, before you said you were thriving, and even, you still have days now. Through your darkest days and your toughest hours, what gives you the courage just to make it through one more day?
Ooh, what gives me the courage to make it through one more day?
Forever seems too difficult. How do you just get through another day?
Yeah. For me, it is a reminder that I am enough. And so whatever is happening, I don't care if life is throwing me curveballs, whatever it is, I'm going to be able to deal with whatever comes my way. I feel like, I am enough. It means that it doesn't have to be about what I do necessarily. It's all about that it's inside me. So whatever comes my way, I'm equipped to handle whatever's happening. I can always say like, hey, tomorrow's going to be a better day or something. But realistically, I think, I come to, I am not my disease. I am enough. Yeah, that's what's coming up right now.
I love that. That's perfect. Do you have anything else you want to get out to the invisible disability community? What messages do you have to share?
For me, I think it's no matter what is thrown your way, don't let your dreams, die. A reminder that you can keep your dreams alive and keep shining your light and also being a light to others. That's really important. And regarding the summit, I also just want to say, I created this for you. I created it so that could give people who just, want some extra inspiration and encouragement. And so I hope that if you find, value in it, that then that's worth it to me. That's the impact right there. And also to share it with people who you think might benefit.
Exactly. I love that. That's so perfect. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being on today. This has been really exciting, and I'm so excited to see the rest of the summit. That will be wonderful, and I'm really excited to share the summit with everyone in our audience.
Thank you so much. It was a joy to be here today.
Perfect. Bye, everyone.